You walk into a room. Maybe it's a party. Maybe it's a work meeting. Maybe it's just a grocery store on a quiet Tuesday afternoon. And the moment you step through that door, something shifts inside you. A quiet but unmistakable awareness, like a switch flipping on deep in your chest. Suddenly you're conscious of how you're walking, whether your arms are moving too much or not enough. You wonder if your face looks strange, if your laugh came out too loud, if the last sentence you said to someone landed the way you meant it. Nobody said anything. Nobody even glanced at you sideways. But the feeling is already running, already scanning, already building a case. And the strangest part? You can't just turn it off. You tell yourself to relax, and somehow that makes it louder. You tell yourself nobody's watching, and your brain immediately finds one person who might be. It's like trying to stop a wave with your hands. Here's what nobody sitting across from you in that room understands. Here's what most people will never say out loud. That feeling isn't a character flaw. It's not immaturity. It's not you being dramatic or fragile or too much. What is actually happening inside your brain in those moments is one of the most ancient, sophisticated, and deeply misunderstood systems in all of human psychology. And once you understand what it actually is, something quietly shifts. Society doesn't help. The label society reaches for is too sensitive, or overthinker, said with a kind of casual dismissal that implies the solution is simple, just care less. Thicken your skin. Get out of your own head. And that framing does real, quiet damage. Because it takes something that is neurologically complex and emotionally significant and reduces it to a personal failure. A choice you're making badly. You're not making a bad choice. Your brain is executing a program it was given a long time ago. So let's actually look at what's happening. What you experience in those moments has a name in psychological research. It's called the spotlight effect, and it was studied in precise detail by psychologists Thomas Gilovich and Kenneth Savitsky at Cornell University. Their findings revealed something that sounds almost impossible the first time you hear it. We consistently, dramatically overestimate how much other people are noticing us. In one of their key studies, participants who wore an embarrassing t-shirt into a room estimated that roughly half the people inside noticed it. The actual number? Closer to 20%. Half versus 20%. That is not a rounding error. That is your brain constructing an entire audience that barely exists. Building a theater, filling the seats, and then performing for people who walked in, grabbed a snack, and went home early. But the spotlight effect is only the surface layer. What sits beneath it is older, stranger, and far more personal. Your brain contains a network called the default mode network. It activates not when you're focused, but when you're not. When you're daydreaming, reflecting, or sitting in exactly the kind of uncertain social moment where you don't know where to look or what to do with your hands. And one of its central functions is mentalizing, the continuous, largely unconscious process of modeling other people's minds, simulating how the world looks from their angle, predicting what they're feeling, what they're thinking, and critically, what they think of you. This is not something you choose to do. It runs automatically, quietly, in the background of every conversation, every entrance, every silence that goes a half second too long. Neuroscientist Matthew Lieberman, who has spent years studying social cognition at UCLA, describes the human brain as fundamentally a social organ. It did not evolve simply to process the physical world around it. It evolved primarily to navigate the social one. And that navigation demands one question above all others, asked constantly, answered imperfectly. How am I being perceived right now? That question is not vanity. It never was. Go back thousands of years. Your ancestors did not survive alone. They lived in tight social groups where belonging was not a comfort. It was survival. Being accepted meant access to food, protection, community. Being rejected, cast out, or perceived as a threat meant something close to a death sentence. So the brain developed an early warning system, a social threat detector that monitored for disapproval, exclusion, or negative judgment the same way it monitored for predators. With urgency, with precision, with no room for error. That system is still inside you. It hasn't been updated. It doesn't know the stakes are different now. And here's where it gets personal. For many people, the intensity of this feeling wasn't assigned randomly. It was shaped, calibrated over time by specific experiences, specific environments, specific relationships that taught the nervous system what to expect from other people. If you grew up in a household where emotional safety was unpredictable, where the mood of the room could change quickly depending on what you did or didn't do, your nervous system responded the way any intelligent system does. It adapted. It built a high-sensitivity radar that could detect subtle shifts in someone's tone, someone's posture, someone's silence before it became a problem. It learned to read microsignals and respond to them fast. Because in that environment, catching those signals early gave you a chance to adjust, to smooth things over, to stay safe. That was not weakness. That was intelligent, adaptive, functional behavior for the context you were in. The difficulty is that the nervous system doesn't automatically recalibrate when the environment changes. The radar your brain built for one kind of room keeps running in every room after it. It scans the grocery store. It scans the quiet office. It scans a room full of people who are genuinely not thinking about you at all. And it reports back possible threat, possible judgment. Stay alert. This is what nobody explains when they tell you to just relax. They're asking you to override a system that was built specifically to resist being overridden. Relaxing doesn't dismantle the wiring. It just adds frustration on top of it. And it is important to say this clearly. People who don't feel this as intensely are not more emotionally advanced. They're not stronger or more confident in any meaningful sense. They simply had different inputs, different early environments, different nervous system baselines that were shaped by different experiences. Neither is right. Neither is wrong. Both are the brain doing exactly what it learned to do with the information it was given. But here is the part most people never see coming. The thing that changes how this whole picture looks. The very quality that creates that painful social awareness. That same high-resolution sensitivity to other people's inner worlds is also one of the rarest and most quietly powerful traits a person can carry. People who feel this strongly are almost always the ones who read the room when no one else can, who catch the shift in a friend's voice before the friend has words for it, who understand the emotional weight of a silence, a hesitation, a look that lasted a half second too long, who make people feel genuinely seen in conversation because they actually are seeing them. The cost and the gift are not separate things. They are made of the same material. The same sensitivity that floods the room with imagined judgment is the one that allows real, deep human connection. You're not broken. You are calibrated differently. And that calibration has a price, yes. But it also has a reach that most people will never know how to access. So what do you actually do with this knowledge? There is one mental shift that psychological research consistently identifies as genuinely useful, not as a cure, but as a pattern interrupt. It is called perspective-taking disruption, and it is simpler than it sounds. When the spotlight feeling arrives, instead of fighting it or try to logic it away, you redirect the question your brain is asking. Instead of, what are they thinking about me right now? You pause and ask, what are they most likely actually thinking about right now? Because the research on this is consistent and almost poetic in its symmetry. They're thinking about themselves, their own entrance, their own words, their own quiet worry about how they're coming across in this exact moment. The spotlight, in almost every room you have ever walked into, is pointed inward for everyone standing in it. That doesn't erase the feeling, but it changes what the feeling means. And slowly, over time, what something means changes how it feels. This is only one layer. The relationship between social perception, self-worth, and the stories we build about who we are runs far deeper than one feeling in one room. If this landed somewhere real, If some part of this felt like it was describing something you've carried for a long time without the right words for it, then what comes next might be exactly where you need to be.